So it just goes to show when you give people oxygen in this way, in a double standard environment where the left is able to get away with just about everything that they do wrong, and the right are constantly monitored with a microphone, with a magnifying glass. When that double standard exists, the last thing you want to do is cave in and give that double standard any more legitimacy. It's time for Republicans to start playing hardball.
Hey everyone, I am your host, Tate Brown here, holding it down for Tim Pool. We have a big story here, an exclusive story from Politico. Leaked messages, I love German Painter here, leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Look, this is a real shocker. I know, Zoomers are a little edgy, right? Their group chats are a little rough around the edges. You know, total shocker to absolutely no one. But they dropped this yesterday, and the reaction has been wild. Thousands of private messages reveal young GOP leaders joking about a variety of things. This was a Telegram chat that was leaked yesterday. I'm sure you've seen the article by now. But the reaction from a lot of people in the GOP has been condemnation, firing. It's basically just cancel culture rehashed. Meanwhile, on the left, you have Jay Jones, the AG candidate, who was literally he was literally endorsing death and despair for his political opponents. And no one in the Democrat Party has provided a full-throated condemnation of this. They completely dance around about this. And the reaction from Vice President J.D. Vance to this Politico article was absolutely fantastic. Here's what he tweeted yesterday. This is far worse than anything said in a college group chat, and the guy who said it could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join in the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence. So Vice President Vance setting the framing very well here. He is excellent. He gets it. He's saying now is not the time to punch right when this is what we're up against. This is the firestorm of leftist political violence that has been engulfing our country. And so fantastic. And many people in the GOP are to the left of the vice president. What does that say about the moment we're in as a party? Unbelievable. If you're to the left of the vice president right now, you're not helping. You're not on the team. So we're going to bring in Gabe Guidarini here. He is a college Republicans expert. He's been in the space for a very long time. He's very familiar with it. And he's going to break down what's going on here, what his reaction was to the article. But more importantly, we're going to drill down on the GOP's reaction, a lot of people in the GOP's reaction. And we're going to break all that down. So we have the interview coming up. Stay tuned. It was a great chat.
So I'm Gabe Guidarini. I've been in Republican politics on the young Republican side for a long time. Previously, I was vice president and then acting president for the College Republicans of America, which oversees a overwhelming majority of the college Republican chapters around the country. And then currently, I'm the chairman of the Ohio College Republican Federation, which oversees all the college Republican chapters in the state of Ohio. So, and I've been working with a lot of different groups before, and just trying to get young people engaged and fight back against the left on our campuses.
Totally. Well, that's great. Well, thanks for hopping on. Before we get into the reactions to the Politico article, can we first get your reaction? What was your reaction yesterday when this article got dropped into your desk? What did you think?
Well, the first thing that I really noticed right off the bat was it's just another instance in the pattern of left-wing journalism that isn't really focused on enlightening people. It isn't really focused on helping people understand the facts and understand the truth, but it's more focused on painting the Republicans as evil, more focused on getting a political agenda across. And in this case, that political agenda is all Republicans are Nazis, fascists, racists, whatever you'd call it. And it's just another pattern. I mean, they've been doing this stuff for a long time. But what really struck me is how swift and coordinated the response was to condemn these people. And not everyone in that chat had texts that were, really that bad. Not everybody in that chat. There were 12 or 13 people in that chat. Not everybody in that chat had really, really scathing texts attributed to them. But everyone in that chat felt the same fire from the GOP establishment. They felt the same wrath from the establishment elements of the Republican Party and of the political system. And it just goes to show that no matter who you are, no matter what association you have, no matter what you've actually said, people will throw you under the bus at a moment's turn if they believe that they are at risk from the left. And the thing that I really like to communicate, and JD Vance talked about this yesterday, is it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what who you associate with or what you do or who you talk to. The left will call you these things regardless. The left will do these things to you regardless. It doesn't matter what you are, what you say. The left, to them, to the left, you are a Nazi, you are a fascist, if you are a Republican, if you are a Trump supporter. So that's the double standard that really comes into play here, especially when you consider how the left treats their own radical elements, treats their own people who say way worse things. Jay Jones said something miles worse than what was said in this chat, which is he was fantasizing about murdering a Republican lawmaker and his children because he believed that he was intrinsically evil. And those text messages were released. Not a single Democrat has come out and defended and revoked their endorsement of Jay Jones for what he said in those text messages. So, it's a major contrast from what you see from the Republican establishment, instantly condemning, and throwing under the bus all the people who were in that group chat for edgy jokes at best, poor taste content at worst. But it's a really stark contrast between how the GOP treats their elements that are perceived as radical and how the Democrats treat their radical elements.
Totally. I mean, what does this say? Because we saw the last 3 primaries now where this sort of cancel culture sort of mentality loses at the ballot box every single time. Donald Trump himself is repudiation of cancel culture, of this finger wagging, of punching right, because he understands the moment we're in. He understands what time it is, and he understands that the left has these radical elements that ultimately want to kill us, as the AG candidate in Virginia has clearly demonstrated. What does that say about some of these, I guess you would call them stragglers, but there's obviously entrenched power that is outflanking the vice president of the United States to the left?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it just goes to show that the Republican Party isn't on the same page. We do not know, the motivations behind all the people who are pushing this out, but it's very clear that there was coordinated activity behind the scenes before this article came out to instantly throw these people under the bus. People were fired even before this article came out. And I think that really goes to show how eager and desperate a lot of establishment elements in the Republican Party are to clean house with anyone who isn't in the establishment wing. And this unfortunately gave them a basis by which to do so. But it just goes to show, JD Vance and Stephen Miller and a lot of these really, really good elements within the Republican Party, they know the correct way to do this. They know the correct way to respond to this, which is to not give the left any oxygen whatsoever because they deserve none. Right. And you may recall in 2016, during the Access Hollywood tapes, when that was released about Donald Trump, when he was first running for president, when those came out, everyone in the Republican Party who meant anything threw him under the bus at a moment's notice. They said he's dead on arrival. He's, cooked. He's not going to make it. These audio recordings are as scathing as can be. And what did Donald Trump do? He stood firm, completely unapologetically. He stood firm and defended himself, defended his reputation, defended his legitimacy as a candidate. And he won, much to the shock of all those establishment Republicans who many of them have since joined forces with Trump and have gone in line, and rightfully so. So it just goes to show when you give people oxygen in this way, in a double standard environment where the left is able to get away with just about everything that they do wrong, and the right are constantly monitored with a microphone, with a magnifying glass. When that double standard exists, the last thing you want to do is cave in and give that double standard any more legitimacy. It's time for Republicans to start playing hardball. And until, I tweeted this out, and a few people have actually talked about this too. Brandon Gill, congressman from Texas, who's, I think, has been really great. Texas out. Look, these text messages are horrible from Jay Jones.
Yeah.
And the Democrats will not condemn it at all. The Democrats never say anything about their radical elements. So why should we give them any more oxygen by throwing other Republicans under the bus? I don't see any reason to.
Totally.
Totally.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about JD Van. There's like a little echo on your end with maybe it's the laptop. I'm not sure.
Possible.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have, I mean, JD Vance specifically going out and getting the framing correct. He set the framing, he set the tone for how people should be responding to this. Could you maybe speak a little bit? Because JD Vance has been he kind of has his finger on the pulse, specifically with what young Americans are feeling, young patriots are feeling. Could you maybe speak a little bit to JD Vance's reaction, what that says about the future of the GOP?
Yeah. JD Vance's reaction, I think, just kind of paints him more as the future of the GOP because, the reason I think it goes both ways. He is the future of the GOP. And that's also part of the reason why he has ascended as far as he has. I remember getting my start in Ohio politics, actually interning on his campaign back in 2022 when he was running for U.S. Senate. And one of the things that got me and a lot of other young people in Ohio so motivated about his campaign was that he was young, that he understood the issues that actually appeal to young people, and that he was ready to play hardball against the left. And JD Vance and Stephen Miller do this better than just about anyone in the upper echelons of the Republican Party. And that's why I think they've ascended so far, is because young people see that and they are remembering that there are people in the Republican Party who are willing to stand by them, who are willing to support them, and who are willing to fight for them against the left, fight for their interests, fight for the future of this country against a left that has abandoned all sense of morality, that has abandoned all sense of pride in country. And JD Vance and Stephen Miller are setting the blueprint for how Republicans should be playing hardball against the left. And that's, I think, why JD Vance has become, in many ways, the front runner for the GOP nomination in 2028. And that's why I think he'll continue to have a large influence in conservative circles going forward, because he consistently proves his expertise and good talking points and good messaging on issues like this, messaging that we sorely need right now.
Totally. I mean, well, JD Vance he gets this one principle, which so many in the GOP don't, is if you're in a dogfight, don't punch right. Don't punish people who are ultimately on your team. That's just like politics 101. I mean, I saw this tweet. This was earlier today. Will Chamberlain actually, he quote tweeted it. This is from an attorney out of Chicago, an immigration attorney, Eric Lee. And he said, quote, "If your visa was denied or revoked due to Charlie Kirk related speech, the Consular Accountability Project is interested in representing you pro bono." So he's obviously responding to the Department of State's, policy where they're not going to distribute visas to people who are dancing on the grave of Charlie Kirk. The left has zero appetite to police their radicals whatsoever because they understand that they're in a war with us. And why would they attack people on their team? But there's a degree to it because they're defending people that want to kill people. They're defending political violence, people that celebrate political violence, versus the right. We're already just throwing people under the bus for edgy jokes. I mean, maybe you could elaborate more on the types of actors that the left is going to bat for and sort of their reaction to their radicals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the left only has so much political capital in this environment that they can afford to spend. I think that the young Americans, especially, and polling shows this too, are kind of turning against the political left. And I think that older Americans are too. I think one of the things that really sparked this off originally was September 10th and the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Democratic leaders, right? This was a very transparent moment. Democratic leaders were coming out and condemning it and condemning all political violence. But their interns, the people underneath them, their supporters, the most vocal people in the young left and the Democratic Socialist organizations were coming out. They were just mocking Charlie Kirk. They chose to either ignore it or worse, they chose to actively joke about it, mock Charlie Kirk. And what it says, I think, about the left is that in many ways, the left is not only worse than the Republican Party, they are about as bad as you can get in terms of systemic ignorance regarding the extremism of their own circles, of the actual people working underneath them. You look at Capitol Hill, most of these Democratic politicians are, they're old white guys. They're probably a lot more moderate. They would, in olden days, they'd probably be more blue dog types, but
Sure.
their interns who pull their strings are about as far left as you can go.
Yeah.
These are people who truly, 50 years ago, they'd be in the weather underground. These people truly have a disdain, not only for America in general, but also for Republicans as people, because they disagree, because they believe that Republicans are morally reprehensible and that they are morally unable to assimilate to their vision, their progressive idea of what this country should be. And that just continues to show itself more and more every single day. The amount of people, it was the fact that there were 100,000 people in this country, at least, those are only the people that we know of, that were put on that database for laughing or supporting Charlie Kirk's assassination. It just goes to show the systemic rot in this country has gotten really deep, and people are taking note of that, not only on the political right, but in the political center as well. So the Democrats are now, I believe, in a panic frenzy to try and shove all this stuff under the radar. And I think that's where a lot of this comes in too. They believe that by painting the Republicans as actually being Nazis or actually being fascists, that they can shove the attention away from them and put it on the right and label all young Republicans, label the young generation of conservatives as far right, Nazis, morally reprehensible. What people may not be expecting, and people may not have expected, is the unlikely ally, or perhaps likely ally, that they have received from the moderate right, from the establishment elements of the Republican Party, who seem completely ready and willing to go to bat for the left and to work with the left to paint the extremists, paint these people as extremists, to try to push aside every element of a more conservative right wing away by labeling everyone as Nazis, by trying to make examples of people by ruining their lives. So it just goes to show that when the left plays hardball, they are able to get away with it. They are able to try and push it aside. But the right can't play hardball if we have half the party desperately trying to work with the left to put the attention back on the right. The attention needs to be on the left, because they're the people the left is where the violent energy is coming from. Not all leftists, obviously, but when there is political violence going on in this country over the past several months, whether it's with Charlie Kirk or whether it's violence directed at ICE agents in Chicago and Portland, it's coming from the left. It comes from a place of political leftism and progressivism. And Republicans need to start acknowledging that much more boldly. And J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller are paving the way.
Totally. That's so true. Because you're tapped into these college GOP circles, obviously through Turning Point and other of your, with your experience and that sort of thing. What is the reaction from young Republicans across the country to this whole situation? What are you hearing? What are they saying? These sorts of things.
Well, I think to most young Republicans, the actual, in the broad scheme of things, an environment where Charlie Kirk was killed and where Jay Jones hasn't lost a single endorsement for his horrible statements that he made over text messages that were released, I think young Republicans have really exhausted all of their energy to care about this particular situation. What infuriates us more is the response from establishment Republican elements. And it just goes to show, look, if somebody is placed in a difficult situation, if somebody has somebody go after them or allege something about them, that the people that they work for, the people who they are supposed to rely on, who they believe that they should be able to rely on, will just throw them under the bus at a moment's notice to protect their own name, to protect their reputation among donor groups. And it just goes to show that that these people are just not in line with the young elements of the GOP whatsoever. And I think it's a lot more systemically induced than that. The Republican Party, in many cases, actively seeks to shove young people away from the table. And when they do have young people that they try to bring in, usually these young people are more focused on they're people who they believe that they can control. They can control their rhetoric. They can they can make sure that these people are parroting the right talking points. Look at who makes up the RNC Youth Advisory Council, for instance. So the Republican Party will bring those people in, and then you have people like Dan Crenshaw who go out and say, if you're under 25, you should not be running for office. Who says something like that? We need more young people running for office. I feel like that's something that even most older folks can agree on, that more young people should be in leadership positions in this country. But the fact of the matter is, a large amount of the Republican Party does not want more young people in leadership positions, because they know that young Republicans and young conservatives are willing to play hardball on the issues that matter most.
Totally. What is the prescription here for these stodges, these old heads that are basically ladder pulling these young guys? I mean, obviously it's a matter of time, given a few decades, this will flush itself out of the system. But the moment we're in, where we're facing an existential threat, a domestic, existential threat, what in the short term can we do to sort of mitigate this ladder pulling, to get people that are focused on breaking this leftist power into positions of prominence and boxing out these stodges that don't really get it, that are functionally Democrats?
Well, we have to show them where the energy is actually coming from within the Republican Party, and show them how little leverage they actually have. And that means combating the precedent that they're trying to set right here and right now with this particular issue. Look at all these establishment Republicans getting ratioed on Twitter right now. I think it was pleasantly surprising that these people are seeing serious backlash, because the Republican base at this point just has no energy for firing to the right. They want all the fire. They want all the arrows. They want all the attack messaging. They want all the energy placed on making sure that people recognize that the left is the issue in the political system right now, that the left is the facet of our political system that's actually contributing to violence and contributing to the political decay and polarization that we're seeing right now. So just setting that message, making sure that these people are aware, because they're in bubbles, right? These establishment Republican types are in bubbles. They hang out in musty old rooms with other old people, and they are not, they're not plugged in with what young people are saying, and that needs to change. And you saw it yesterday and today with these people, these establishmentarians, coming onto Twitter to instantly denounce these people, thinking that they'd be okay. Meanwhile, they just have a bunch of right-wing young people coming in and just totally torching them, because they're throwing people under the bus and putting no attention on the left whatsoever. And then the left still calls them Nazis. So they gain nothing out of doing that. And, making an example out of them in that way is really important for being able to build a Republican Party that knows how to fight and knows how to win. Yeah.
Well, I want to drill down a little bit on the sort of the overall vibe among young people, because look, we saw the group chat, we read the text, it's in the article, these sorts of things. If you're older, that's obviously very scandalizing, but for young people, it's not so much. This is actually kind of familiar. These group chats are typically quite edgy. There's a lot of dark humor, these sorts of things. And a friend of mine, Nathan Halberstadt, he posted this graph on Twitter that did numbers, which was showing the percentage of Americans who are homeowners and married by 30. And it was like, 60, 70% in the 1970s. and it's just completely fallen off a cliff where I think it was hovering around like 10% today. And I look at stuff like that. I look at a variety of metrics that indicate how bad or how difficult it is for young people to properly matriculate into adulthood, right? Like a lot of these conventional avenues are being shut off. And so it's like it's no wonder that these guys, the young people broadly, which would include myself, are kind of edgy. They're kind of they have a little less regard for convention because ultimately convention has failed them. Ultimately, the orthodox pathways have failed them. So they're going to, be a little rough around the edges just naturally. It just comes with the territory. But I don't know, maybe you can drill down a little bit on that.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to defend, a lot of the things that were said in that chat.
Sure.
I'm not going to, defend it. It was a lot of tasteless content. But I think just generally speaking, the Republican base, especially young people in the Republican base, have been pushed to a point where they just don't care about how they're interpreted anymore. Because if you come out again in support of lower tax rates, they will call you a Nazi at this point. If you come out and you say, I don't want unlimited immigration, or I actually just want to, stop illegal immigration, they call you a Nazi. So if they call you a Nazi, even when you're being a moderate Republican, if you're saying things that probably 70% of Americans can agree on, then what's the point in trying to adhere to those lines? Eventually, people stop caring. Again, eventually, people stop giving a hoot, and they just start, spouting off. And I think that's a point where the left has taken a lot of people in the right too. And the establishment GOP just doesn't recognize that, because at the end of the day, they don't have to face that. They aren't in contact with the left. They don't know what it's like to be in close contact with the left. College students like the ones that I represent in my role as chairman, they are on campus and face harassment from left-wing people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are living in a multi-million-dollar McMansion in Northern Virginia, and the only experience that you have with the opposite side of the aisle is in the halls of Capitol Hill, you're not going to get that same experience. And that's a dichotomy. That's sort of the contrast of experiences that's being formed. And until it is resolved, the young base will continue to be at odds with the older establishment element of the Republican Party.
Yeah, absolutely. We're running against the clock. We have a little more time. I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts? Maybe what sort of reaction you would like to see? Maybe from these GOP apparatchiks.
Well, I mean, the reaction I want to see is the reaction I saw from J.D. Vance and Brandon Gill and a whole lot of other people, which is the Democrats never condemned Jay Jones. Nobody has revoked their endorsements for Jay Jones after what he did. If they want to play like that, then we'll play like that too. We're going to fight fire with fire, and we're not in the mood to punch right. We just want to punch left, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to actually not only push the Overton window, but actually prevent the left from having political power in this country in the way that they did during the Biden administration, because they're angling to get back into it. And the number one thing that they want when they hopefully, they want to reclaim power, they want to defeat Vance or whoever it's going to be in 2028. They want that precedent to be set so that they can really restrict freedom of speech in this country to prevent another Trump or Republican or conservative or right-wing presidency from ever happening again. And the number one thing that's going to help them achieve that precedent is by labeling all of their political opponents as Nazis, fascists, whatever. They want to make sure that we can be as alienated as humanly possible. And the only way that we're going to prevent that from happening is by getting Republicans who will stand up and press all the fire to the left.
Dude, so good. So good. Thank you for your insights, man. Thanks for hopping on. Where can people find you if they want more?
I'm on X at Gabe Guidarini. You'll also find me on most of the other social media platforms as well. But most of my political commentary and analysis is done on Twitter. Guidarini.
Okay, I was trying to nail the pronunciation beforehand. So it's so Italian. I could taste the wine as I was saying it. It was fantastic. But Well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
We'll have you back here sometime soon. So appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Alrighty. Well, that was the college Republican. He has his finger on the pulse. He has his finger on the pulse, and that's why we had to bring him on. I couldn't think of anyone better to break this down. Totally correct. JD Vance setting the framing, correct. He just gets it. He really just does get it. And if you're to the left of JD Vance right now, if you're to, not just that, let's just kind of, take a step back. If you're to the left of the Vice President of the United States, what are you doing? What's going on here? You got to take a long look in the mirror. So with that, I'm going to wind us down. We are going to raid Devori Dawkins. He is live, and we're going to give him a raid here. Let me get this fired up. Raid. See if I can get this. Boom. I'm losing my young status here. Okay, we got it. So raid is fired up, and we're confirming the raid to Devori Dawkins. He is he's fantastic. You guys are gonna love it. So yeah, thanks for watching. You can follow me on X and Instagram and elsewhere at Real Tate Brown. Come follow me over there. We'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL, and it's gonna be a great show tonight. You are not going to want to miss it. So be there tonight. And with that, thanks for watching.